The chime above the door rang, that sound I'd heard 1,000 times, the one I paid to have installed. "Morning, everyone," I said, smiling at the counters, the familiar sparkle of diamonds winking back at me. Silence. Melissa, the store manager, looked up from the register with a strange tilt of her head. "Can I help you?" I blinked. "Help me? I'm fine." "This area's for customers only," she said, walking toward me. "If you're looking for something in particular, I can get someone to assist you." My smile faltered. "Melissa, it's me. I own this store." Her lips curved into something between a smirk and a sneer. "Right. Sure you do." A woman at the watch display leaned toward her husband. "Is she serious?" One of the clerks muttered. "Maybe she's lost," while another snickered. "She doesn't look like—" and stopped mid-sentence. My stomach tightened. I scanned their faces, people I had interviewed, trained, trusted. Not one of them met my eyes. "Melissa," I said, keeping my voice calm. "My name is on the lease. I signed your last paycheck." She folded her arms. "Then you won't. Mind showing proof." I pulled out my business account card, holding it toward her. "Here, take a look. This is my store." She didn't move. "You need to leave, ma'am." My heartbeat pounded in my ears. "You're really doing this?" Melissa's smile was polite, poisonous. "Security to the front, please." I stood there, rooted to the floor, my eyes moving from one employee to the next. No one spoke. No one defended me. The store I built suddenly felt like enemy territory. The guard's shadow fell over me before his voice did. "Ma'am, I'm gonna have to ask you to step outside." I didn't move. "Do you know who I am?" My voice was steady, but the heat in my chest was crawling up my neck. "Doesn't matter who you are," he said, hands resting too comfortably on his belt. "You need to leave." Melissa's smirk cut through the air like a blade. "Someone who's making a scene." A murmur rippled through the customers. "What's going on?" someone whispered. Another voice, low but sharp. "She must have tried to steal something." Steal. From my own store. I caught Aaron's eyes, one of the sales associates I'd hired 2 years ago. "Aaron, tell—" "Him," I said. "Tell him this is my store." He took a step forward. "She's—" "Back to work, Aaron," Melissa snapped, her smile never touching her eyes. "Unless you want to join her outside." The guard moved closer, his bulk, blotting out the jewelry cases. "Ma'am, last warning." I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip the lease off the wall and shove it in all their faces. Instead, I said, "You're making a mistake, a big one." Melissa crossed her arms. "The only mistake here is you refusing to leave." The guard's hand brushed my arm. Not hard, but enough to make my skin crawl. I yanked it back. "Don't touch me." His jaw tightened. "Then walk." I felt every pair of eyes on me as I took a slow, deliberate step toward the door. The whispers grew, feeding on the humiliation hanging in the air. The guard pushed the glass open, waiting for me to cross the threshold. I did. And the click of the lock behind me hit harder than the shove on my shoulder. I stood there staring, at the door, at the faint reflection of my own face in the glass. Inside, Melissa turned away, already smiling at another customer like I had never existed. I called her before the anger in my chest could settle. "Tanya, where were you today?" There was a pause on the line, too long for comfort. "I was in the back." "In the back?" My voice sharpened. "So you didn't hear Melissa calling security on me in front of customers?" Another pause. I heard." I closed my eyes. "And you didn't think to come out?" "I didn't want to make it worse," she said, her voice small. "It was already worse?" My throat tightened. "You think watching your boss get thrown out of her own store like a criminal could get worse?" She didn't answer. Just breathing, faint on the other end. Why didn't you say anything, Tanya? The question was quieter now, but heavier. More silence. That kind of silence that feels like someone is shrinking away from you, even through the phone. I paced in my kitchen, staring at the cold cup of coffee I'd left on the counter that morning. I hired you because I thought you understood, because I thought you'd have my back. Her voice broke slightly. It's not that I don't care, I just didn't want to cause trouble. I bit down hard on the urge to laugh. You think trouble's something you avoid by staying quiet? No, Tanya. Trouble is what happens when people stay quiet. She didn't defend herself, didn't even try, just breathing again. I was ready to hang up when my phone pinged. A message from her. One image, a screenshot of the staff group chat. My stomach dropped as I scrolled. Comments about me, jokes about ownership, Melissa calling me entitled, someone else writing, bet she thinks the place is hers. Laughing emojis littered the screen, and there, near the bottom, Tanya's name. Not defending me, not calling them out, just a single laughing emoji. I stared at it until the words blurred. You knew, I whispered into the phone, and you laughed. She still didn't answer. The words glared back at me from my phone. Black letters on a bright screen, burning hotter than any insult ever said to my face. She doesn't belong here. Bet she used someone else's money. And then, Mark, the man I trusted to run the store when I traveled. One day we'll show her the door for real. Followed by a string of laughing emojis. My thumb hovered over the screen, scrolling slowly, almost afraid of what else I'd see. Each message was another cut. Each joke another reminder that I had been smiling at people who saw me as an intruder in my own space. You never saw me as human, I whispered. My voice sounded foreign in the quiet of my living room. I could still see Melissa's smirk earlier that day, the way she tilted her head when security stepped closer. I could still hear the soft, ugly chuckle from a customer when she asked if I was serious about owning the store. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the heat in my chest settle into something steadier. Not rage, not despair, strategy. I hit dial. Lawson and Green, a crisp voice answered. It's me, I said. My tone was level, too level. I want the cameras pulled from the store. Every angle, every second. A pause. All right, and every one of these messages preserved. I tapped the screenshot, my hand shaking just once before I steadied it. You want to move forward? The voice asked. I stared at Mark's message again, at the way the others piled on without hesitation. Oh, we're moving forward, I said, my voice low, certain. I've been humiliated enough for one lifetime. The bell over the door rang the same way it always had, but this time, the sound felt like a challenge. My lawyer's heels clicked behind me, sharp and deliberate. Melissa's eyes narrowed the moment she saw me. We don't need customers like you. Her voice was louder than it needed to be, like she was performing for an audience. I didn't flinch. Good thing I'm not here as a customer. My lawyer set a neat folder on the counter and slid a stack of printed screenshots toward her. You might want to read these before you speak again. Melissa's gaze dropped. Her hands hesitated before touching the papers. I watched her lips move silently, scanning her own words. It was just a joke, she said finally, the edge gone from her voice. I leaned in, my tone calm but sharp enough to cut. A joke you'll explain in court. She swallowed hard, glancing at the silent faces behind her. No one moved. Not one of them spoke. The air was heavy, their eyes darting between us like they were watching a shift they didn't know how to survive. I took a slow breath, holding her gaze until she looked away. The balance had changed, and we both knew it. I caught it, her voice low, sharp. Delete the footage. She thought I wouldn't hear. I stepped closer, close enough to see her flinch. Every word you said is on record. My voice didn't rise. I didn't need it to. Her eyes flicked toward the door like she was already calculating an escape route. Two of the younger staff drifted over, heads bowed. One of them murmured, We didn't know it would go this far." I held their gaze, searching for truth in their eyes. "You saw it start, and you stayed quiet." The taller one swallowed hard. "I'm sorry. Sorry didn't rewind humiliation. Sorry didn't erase the sting of being dragged out of my own store. But I nodded once, just enough to make them squirm under the weight of it." My lawyer stepped forward, papers in hand. "Melissa Carter, you're being served." Her voice carried through the store, slicing through the silence. Heads turned, customers, staff, even the guard by the door froze mid-step. Melissa's hands shook as she took the envelope. No one rushed to her side. No one defended her. She stood there alone, the cracks in her armor wide enough for everyone to see. The clerk swore me in, and the wood of the witness stand felt cold under my palms. "My name is," I started, my voice steady. "And on the day in question, I walked into my own store to make a purchase. I was refused service. I was accused, without basis, of not belonging there." Melissa sat across from me, eyes locked on the table, pretending to scribble notes. Her lawyer rose. "Isn't it possible you misunderstood my client's intentions?" "No," I said flatly. "You don't misunderstand being told to get out. You don't misunderstand security dragging you by the arm." Melissa lifted her head, a faint smirk curling. "It was a misunderstanding," she said directly to the judge. "Things were busy. I didn't mean—" The judge cut her off, flipping through a stack of papers. "These are the chat logs?" My lawyer nodded. The judge's voice was calm, but each word landed heavy. "She doesn't belong here. Bet she used someone else's money. Show her the door for real." The air thinned. I could hear someone's breath catch in the gallery. Melissa's shoulders twitched, but she kept her eyes forward. Then the screen lit up. Security footage rolled. Me standing at the counter, her waving over the guard, my card still in my hand. The sound of her voice telling me to leave. The way my body jerked when the guard gripped my arm. A murmur swept the room. I didn't look at them. I just watched her face pale under the weight of her own actions. The judge leaned back. "I find, in favor of the plaintiff, damages awarded as stated. Effective immediately, you have full authority to restructure staff as you see fit." Melissa's mouth opened like she might protest, but nothing came out. I kept my gaze on her for one heartbeat longer, just long enough to let her know. This was only the beginning. The bell over the door gave a soft ring, but the hum of conversation in the lobby dropped almost instantly. "Is that her?" someone whispered. I kept walking, heels clicking against the tile, my eyes straight ahead. Every gaze followed me. A woman near the display case smiled faintly, like she already knew the ending to the story. "Welcome back, Ms. Carter," one of the new hires said, standing a little taller. His voice didn't have the stiffness I'd grown used to. It had warmth. I glanced toward the manager's desk. Empty. The leather chair sat pushed in neatly, as if no one had ever sat there to tell me I didn't belong. A younger woman behind. The counter stepped forward. "It's an honor to have you here." "Thank you," I said, my voice low but clear. "I want everyone to hear this." The staff gathered without me asking. Even a few customers edged closer. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing in, the way fear used to. But this time, it wasn't mine. "This," I began, scanning their faces, "is not just a place of business. It's a place of respect. Every person who walks through those doors deserves dignity, no exceptions." One of the older salesmen nodded, eyes steady on me. "I don't care how much money is in their pocket or what color their skin is. You treat them with humanity first, everything else second." A soft clap broke the stillness, then another, until the sound grew, customers and staff together. I walked to the counter, pulling out the chair that once felt like a forbidden throne, and sat down. The applause swelled, but I didn't smile. I let the sound wash over me, not as noise, but as proof. They would never forget this silence turning into respect. Her face filled the screen. The same mouth that had told me to get out was now shaping the words the world had been waiting for. "I was wrong," she said, voice tight. "And I'm sorry." The camera caught the tremor in her hands. I could almost feel her searching for the right way to appear human again. "Do you believe?" "Her?" someone asked from behind the camera crew that had gathered in my office. I didn't answer. I kept my eyes on the TV, letting her words hang there. I acted out of bias and ignorance," she continued. "I regret the pain I caused. The words didn't sting. They didn't heal either. They just existed. I wondered if she practiced them in the mirror, or if they'd been fed to her by a PR consultant with perfect hair and no conscience." The reporter turned toward me. "Will you forgive her?" I leaned forward, feeling every lens lock onto my face. "Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting," I said slowly. "And I won't forget." There was a murmur among the crew. The lights felt hotter, the air sharper. "Does that mean you want revenge?" another voice pressed. I shook my head. "It means I want change. Real change. An apology without action is just noise." One of the interns whispered to another, "That's going viral." I looked back at the screen. She was still talking, but the words blurred into static in my mind. The crowd outside the store had already chosen a side, and it wasn't hers. In that moment, I didn't need her friendship, her approval, or her redemption. I already had what mattered. My voice back, and the truth out in the open where she could never bury it again. The microphone was lighter than I expected, but the weight of the moment pressed down on my chest. "I learned something," I said, letting my eyes sweep over the crowd. "They never saw me as human until I made them see me as untouchable." A murmur rippled through the room. I could feel every camera lens locked on me, every phone recording, every pair of eyes waiting for the next sentence. "I want to thank those who stood beside me when it wasn't safe," I continued. "The ones who spoke when others stayed silent. You didn't just support me, you reminded me that I was worth defending." A woman near the front wiped her cheek. I caught it in the corner of my vision and felt something in me shift. Less rage now, more resolve. "And to those still sitting in rooms where your voice feels like a risk," I said, my voice tightening, "speak anyway. Speak up when it's hardest, especially then." Applause started in one corner, small at first, then building until it filled the hall. I let the sound wash over me, but I didn't smile. Not yet. "Because silence," I added, leaning in toward the microphone, "is their favorite weapon, and our truth is the only thing that can break it." The applause turned into a roar. People stood, clapping, shouting, some with fists in the air. The lights from the cameras flashed so fast it was almost blinding. I stepped back from the podium, letting the noise take over. My voice was out there now, stamped into headlines, whispered in living rooms, replayed on every screen. And I knew, this time, no one could erase it.